Good afternoon, President Salovey, Marta Moret, colleagues and friends, and welcome to the Tanner Lecture on Human Values, hosted by the Whitney Humanities Center. My name is Alice Kaplan, and I'm director of the Whitney. One of the privileges and pleasures at the Whitney is to advise the president on the selection of Tanner lecturers. This year, we've had the exceptional opportunity to invite a speaker working in the field of artificial intelligence. Fei-Fei Li is an international leader in establishing a human-centered framework for artificial intelligence in research, education, practice, and policy. Her visit to Yale is especially meaningful for us at the Whitney, of course, because it's our first Tanner lecture since the pandemic and our first here in the Humanities Quadrangle, but also because it's allowed us to reach deep into our mission, to blend ways of knowing, as we've made contact with a community of scholars working in artificial intelligence and related fields across the campus. We've said to many of you that we are new to the neighborhood of artificial intelligence and delighted to be here. I'm especially grateful to our Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences, to Mark Gendler, to Gary Tomlinson, former Whitney Director and Sterling Professor of Music and Humanities, and to Alan Gerber, Sterling Professor of Political Science, Director of the Institution for Social and Public Policy Studies, Professor of Economics and Statistics and Data Science, for their knowledge and their support in planning this event. Before we begin, let me say a few words about the Tanner Lectures on Human Values, which were established by the American scholar, industrialist, and philanthropist Obert Clark Tanner and his wife, Grace Tanner. Educated at the University of Utah, Stanford, and Harvard, Obert Tanner went on to become a New Testament scholar and professor at the University of Utah. But that is not the whole story. In order to pay for his education, he founded a jewelry company while still an undergraduate. His company, O.C. Tanner, which manufactures employee recognition awards and seeks to improve workplace cultures through personalized employee recognition, became an extraordinary success, and it is on this base that Grace and Obert Tanner's philanthropy was built. Yale is one of a number of universities in the US, the UK, and beyond to sponsor Tanner lectures. Appointment as a Tanner lecturer is a recognition of uncommon achievement and outstanding ability in the field of human values. The lecturers come from many fields and walks of life: philosophy, religion, and the other humanities, the sciences, the creative arts, the learned professions, or indeed from leadership in public or private affairs. The lectureships are international and intercultural and are meant to transcend ethnic, national, religious, and ideological distinctions. As I noted earlier, at Yale, Tanner lecturers are selected by the president in consultation with the director and the executive committee of the Whitney Humanities Center. We are thrilled, though not at all surprised, by this big turnout. Yale is obviously delighted that President Salovey invited Fei-Fei Li, Sequoia Professor of Computer Science at Stanford University, and Denning, co-director of the Stanford Institute for Human-Centered AI. You'll hear more about Professor Li's achievements and the impact of her work in a moment. Please note that there will be no question and answer period following the lecture. The video recording will be posted on the Yale YouTube channel in the coming days, and we invite you to check the Whitney Humanities Center website and subscribe to our weekly email at subscribe.yale.edu for updates. Now it is my pleasure to welcome to the podium Professor Marvin Chun, Richard M. Colgate, Professor of Psychology and Professor of Neuroscience. Marvin, it's such a pleasure, after having worked with you in your capacity as Dean of the College, to welcome you today as a leader in the study of brain imaging and artificial intelligence.
Good afternoon, everyone. Dr. Fei-Fei Li is one of the most important and influential researchers in the entire history of artificial intelligence. If you enjoy the ability to use verbal labels to search through your library of thousands of photos, or trust your Tesla to maintain its lane and speed as it races along with other cars down a highway, then you owe much to Dr. Li. An AI system is only as good as the data used to train it. And amongst her many accomplishments, she is responsible for developing ImageNet, a labeled database of images that enabled revolutionary advances in computer vision over the past 10 to 15 years. Even though I'm not a computer scientist, I'm deeply honored to have this opportunity to introduce Dr. Li because of our shared background in cognitive neuroscience, especially scene perception and categorization, a topic to which Dr. Li has made pioneering contributions even before developing ImageNet. Her broad research interests span cognitively inspired AI, machine learning, deep learning, computer vision, and AI plus healthcare, especially ambient intelligent systems for healthcare delivery. Dr. Li has published more than 200 scientific articles in top-tier journals and conference proceedings. Even more impressive is her measurable impact. With a total of over 181,000 citations, her work attracts more attention in 1 year than most researchers gain over their entire careers. Not surprisingly, she has been recognized with countless honors and awards, including election to the National Academy of Engineering, the National Academy of Medicine, and the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. I not only admire her accomplishments in research, but her contributions to society. She is a national leading voice for advocating diversity in STEM and AI. After serving as a director of Stanford's AI lab, she took a sabbatical from Stanford to serve as the vice president at Google and as chief scientist of AI machine learning at Google Cloud. Now, Professor Li is the co-director of Stanford Human-Centered AI Institute, and beyond campus, she is co-founder and chairperson of the national nonprofit AI for All, aimed at increasing inclusion and diversity in AI education. Recognized in 2016 by the Carnegie Foundation as one of the great immigrants, the pride of America, if you consider other past honorees on this list, I can describe Dr. Li to be like the Albert Einstein or the Yo-Yo Ma of artificial intelligence. We are excited to hear her speak to us about what we see and what we value, AI with a human perspective. Please join me in welcoming this year's Whitney Humanities Center Tanner Lecturer on Human Values, Dr. Fei Li.
It's quite an honor to be here. I really want to thank President Salovey and the Whitney Humanities Center for quite an honor. Of course, I cannot pass the opportunity to also honor another incredible computer scientist who came out of Yale, that is Dr. Grace Hopper. So for all of us, especially women working in computer science, even after almost 90 years, we still are following her footsteps and trying to live up to the incredible leadership and trailblazing career she has established for all the women in computer science. And that journey has been long and will still continue. We haven't get to where she probably envisioned for all of us, but it's quite an honor to be back to the alma mater of Dr. Grace Hopper. So, I'm here to really share with you some of my own work in the field of AI. And I have to confess, as a scientist and technologist, when I entered this incredibly exciting but nobody knew field in AI two plus decades ago, it would not have been my wildest dream that how profound this field has become to the daily lives of our collective humanity and our society. So I really cherish this moment to share with you what we have learned, but really hope to engage in a productive conversation with you. I understand there will be a conversation tomorrow as well, and hope to meet some of you after the lecture. So thank you so much. I'll begin my talk, as Alice has said, the topic of my talk today is what we see and what we value, AI with a human perspective. I'm going to take you back in history a little bit, back in history, 540 million years ago. just a little while back, life on Earth was very different. It was all underwater. Animals live in the primordial soup of the ocean, and frankly, there aren't that many animals in the world. Life was very chill. They float around. And then something really remarkable happened. It was a mystery. In what geologically considered a very short period of time, 10 million years, between 540 million years ago to 530 million years ago, fossil studies have told us the number of animal species just exploded. What happened? There were many theories, from climate change to the chemical composition of the ocean water and all this. But there is one influential conjecture that has captured the attention. And this was put forth by an Australian zoologist called Andrew Parker. By studying fossils, he conjectured that the Cambrian explosion, by the way, that's what the period was called with the animal speciation, Cambrian explosion, or Big Bang of evolution, actually. The Cambrian explosion is triggered by the sudden evolution of vision, which set off an evolutionary arms race where animals either evolved or died. So, vision, the onset of vision and perception, was one of the driving forces of the evolution of animal species. Furthermore, it's a driving force of the evolution of the nervous system, eventually leading up to very intelligent animals like us. In fact, today on Earth, the majority of the animals uses visual perception as a major sensory system to guide its survival and thriving of the species. And for us humans, we're very much visual animals. Our visual intelligence gets us to communicate with each other, to work, to navigate the world, to interact with the world, to entertain ourselves. And it's hard to believe that we can live without much of the visual intelligence. In the meantime, the field of intelligence also started to evolve in addition to what natural evolution is in the field of computer science. AI compared to evolution is a very, very, very young field. Most people say it's about 60 years. But the history of computer vision and the history of AI is very much entangled. Just at the very dawn of AI, back around 60 years ago, there was a very ambitious MIT summer project. And the MIT summer project proposed by this professor says, we'll use our summer workers, and I suppose they had some smart ones, effectively to construct a significant part of a visual system or an artificial visual system within one summer. Well, that didn't quite happen, but the urban legend goes that this is the beginning of the field of computer vision, that someone or a collection of pioneering computer scientists had the belief that one day we can create an artificial intelligence system with the kind of visual intelligence that humans enjoy. Fast forward to the second decade, or actually the third decade of 21st century, vision has come a long way. Just as Marvin was mentioning about self-driving cars or visual assistant, driving assistance, to image classification, to the incredible work recently by generative arts, vision has not only become a blossoming and vibrant academic discipline, but it also has become a driving force in commercialization and industry. So the rest of the talk is really to share with you my own journey and perspective about my field. Where have we come from and where are we heading? And also, what are the human lessons that we have learned along the way of developing computer vision? So one thing that's been really fun to hear about this audience is that you come from all walks of discipline and areas, and I'm not going to assume everybody is a computer scientist or a student of AI. So let me just give a very simple definition, because a lot of you probably hear the words like AI, machine learning, deep learning, computer vision, NLP. What are these things? Well, here's a cheat sheet. I'm not going to go over everything, and I won't quiz you, but let's just get some basic definitions. Artificial intelligence, AI, is actually a term coined by computer scientist and Stanford's emeritus professor John McCarthy back in the 1950s, early 60s. He described this field as the science and engineering of making intelligent machines. Nature took 540 million years. Let's see how long that would take humanity to create a silicon-based intelligent machine. And within the field of artificial intelligence, especially as it grows, you start to see areas of disciplines emerge, such as field of computer vision, field of natural language processing, speech recognition, and robotics, and so on. And there are more and more newer fields within artificial intelligence or related to artificial intelligence. Okay, but you also hear terms like machine learning and deep learning. What are these things? Well, consider machine learning the mathematical language of doing today's AI. In fact, there are other mathematical languages have been developed in the history of AI. But for the purpose of this talk, machine learning is a relatively young discipline in computer science that combines statistics, applied math, and even inspired by neuroscience and psychology and all this in terms of creating computer programs based on statistical models to achieve the goals of different kinds of AI tasks. And within machine learning, the latest revolution is based on a family of algorithms called neural networks. And we'll get to that a little more later, but you hear neural networks a lot, probably on news these days. And also there is a better name now, or less nerdy name for neural network, which is called deep learning. So these are the words you will hear from me. Okay, so let's get to the talk. So I want to share with you 3 parts of the work we have done. And the first one is building AI to see what humans see. First of all, let's just accept this. Humans are incredible visual animals, and we can see a lot. In fact, our visual system is very robust. This is a seminal study by Molly Potter back in the 1970s with her colleagues to show you that she's showing you a video and consider you a human subject in her lab, and nod your head if you see a person in one of the frames. Okay, I see all. Good, you have good visual systems. We get that out of the way. But take a moment to reflect how remarkable this is. Every frame here is only on the screen for 100 milliseconds, refreshed at 10 hertz frequency. And other than say me telling you to detect a person, you don't know what the person looks like, the gesture of the person, where in the frame it is, what kind of clothes it's wearing. You don't know if this is a man, woman, or anything. Yet your visual system is really quick at recognizing and detecting this object. Furthermore, by the turn of the century, shortly before the turn of the century, neurophysiologists like Simon Thorpe and his colleagues have also put a speed of processing of our remarkable visual system when categorizing complex natural scenes. The experiment he did is to put human subjects in front of computers and flash them with complex photos of animals or non-animals. Here are some examples. And the task of the human is to just say, yes, I see an animal, or I don't see an animal. Mind you, these are really complex real-life pictures. You don't know which kind of animal is going to come up. You don't know what the distractor pictures are going to be. And in the meantime, he's measuring your brain wave through EEG. And as early as 150 milliseconds after the onset of the visual stimuli, he sees a differential signal in human brain that tells you the difference between an animal picture and a non-animal picture. considering our wetware here is a lot slower than transistors, this is a remarkable achievement in terms of the fleeting speed that our visual processing is. In addition to temporal capabilities, we also find neural correlates, areas in the brain that are dedicated to object recognition, such as faces or places or even body parts. This is a concurrent set of studies during the turn of the century, showing us these kind of brain areas. So all this is to show you that there's something remarkable about our human visual brain. And one of the most remarkable thing is our ability to do object recognition or to categorize objects. In fact, we believe, and cognitive neuroscientists and vision psychologists believe, object recognition is a fundamental building block of visual intelligence. And for those of us who work in AI, especially trying to make machines see, this has become a North Star. It's an important ability we need to endow the machines with. So, formally speaking, the task of object recognition is to show, let's say, an agent, whether it's a brain or a computer, a picture of an object, and the agent is capable of output the category of what this picture contains. In this case, a very cute Australian animal, wombat. You might wonder, how hard is it? Because you can all do it. Well, mathematically speaking, any 3D object in the world can render infinite number of pictures in a 2D frame, whether it's a camera frame or your retina, because of the infinite possibilities of lighting, appearance differences, background clutter, occlusion, self-occlusion, camera viewing angles. So this is a hard task. And now evolution has solved it for us. Let's see how we solve it in computers. At this point, I'm going to bring you to the last lesson or diversion of machine learning and AI today. Is this concept of generalization. So for the rest of the talk, no matter what project I'm talking about, as long as I'm talking about AI, mathematically, the goal of AI and developing an AI algorithm is to solve the problem of generalization. What is the problem of generalization? The generalization is the following. When we develop an algorithm or a system that is capable of doing something, in this case, recognizing objects or wombat pictures, our goal is actually not to train the algorithm so that the training error goes to minimal. That's a little counterintuitive because, of course, you want the training error to go to minimal, right? That's why you send your kids to school. But your kids will also get out of school and go to the real world. So what you really want is, once the algorithm encounter a case, an example that is not in training, but in testing or in generalization time, you want the algorithm still to be able to do well. You want the testing error or the generalization error to be as small as possible. In fact, the gap between the testing error and the training error, you want it to be as small as possible. And that goal or that process of making this happen is generalization. And in AI or machine learning, our mathematical goal is always to achieve the best possible generalization. Okay, we got the nerd talk out of the way. So let's continue with the visual tasks we care about, which is object recognition. In the early days, back last century, that pioneering computer scientists have used, there was very little compute, there was practically no data, and we know very little about the mathematical models. So pioneering scientists have designed hand-designed features and hand-designed models to try to account for how to recognize complex objects. And it was a bunch of beautiful conceptual theories, but it didn't go very far in real-world generalization. around the turn of 20th to 21st century, a new tool emerged, and that fundamentally changed many areas of AI, including computer vision, and that's the tool of machine learning or statistical modeling. So in this time, we start to see a lot of interesting work of using hand-designed features or patches of images, but start to use machine learning models to learn the parameters of these features. This might be a little over the head for some of you who are not in computer science, but it doesn't matter. All you need to know is that we're starting to move towards machine learning and machine learned parameterization of models. Something else important happened during that time, which is actually the availability of data. Internet start to happen, and the field of AI and computer vision start to have available pictures to train our algorithms on. So in this seminal early work by a group of European scientists, they created this data set called Pascal VOC, so that the whole field, the whole community of computer vision field can start working on the object recognition problem by using this data set of a few thousand images and on 20 object classes. That was also around the time I graduated from PhD and became an assistant professor. And something really bugged me. Because while it's really cool, we're working on this North Star problem of object recognition, but we're working with 20 objects. Cognitive psychologists have told us humans have a remarkable ability of recognizing object categories, more than 30,000 object categories by tender age of 6. So 20 versus 30,000, it didn't fully compute. So my students and I started to examine the previous work in computer vision, in object recognition, and realized one of the biggest problems we might be facing is not the hand-designed models per se, it's actually the data we're training on. So in a 3-year effort, my collaborators and my students and I went a little crazy. We downloaded the entire internet we could get to. Back in 2006, 2007, more than 1 billion images. We hand curated through a crowd engineering method, 15 meticulously cleaned and labeled images, 15 million meticulously curated, labeled images across 22,000 object categories. And that was the ImageNet project. And ImageNet was born with the ambition that it will fuel computer vision and machine learning algorithm in a fundamentally, qualitatively different way. And to our, I wouldn't say surprise, but we're very happy to see that start to happen. A particular family of model that did really well when there is a huge flood and wealth of data available is neural network models or algorithms, especially in computer vision, convolutional neural network. Convolutional neural network is one of the statistical models developed since the last century, and it's not a particularly new set of algorithms. The early onset of the convolutional neural network history began even in the 60s and 70s and was further refined by people like Jeff Hinton and Yann LeCun. And for those of you not familiar with this neural network model, it is actually inspired by the brain. In fact, by the cat brain and the Hubel and Wiesel study on the cat visual system. So the fundamental building block of a neural network is a node, a neuron-like node that takes input from other nodes and sends output. And not only they take inputs, they also are layered hierarchically, so you can pass information around in an efficient way. So even 10 years ago, with the availability of ImageNet, we were making models, neural network models as large as millions of nodes and hundreds of millions of parameters and billions of connections. And this number is tiny compared to today's neural network, orders of magnitude smaller than what we see in today's computer science. So with the help of computer ImageNet and the neural network algorithm, the field of computer vision started to see success in object recognition. So we're able to categorize, say, a picture of cat, or even find a cat in a more natural everyday photo, or some other pictures, some other objects such as teddy bears or girls and a boy, or even small objects like dog and kite. And then a historical moment happened. So for 3 years after after we built ImageNet, we actually open sourced this data set. We believe this is an important asset to our community. Not only we open sourced it, we created an international challenge to invite researchers around the world to participate in the object recognition challenge. And we curated a particular task called the ImageNet Object Classification Task with 1,000 object classes and millions of images. And then in 2012, the winning algorithm of the ImageNet challenge is by Professor Jeff Hinton and his student, called ImageNet classification with deep convolutional neural networks. With this work, and people casually call it the AlexNet because of the first author, AlexNet cut the error rate, or the generalization error, as you all learned, significantly compared to the models, the previous year's models. And many people, and maybe historians will tell us in the future, many people now consider this moment and this work, the ImageNet challenge and the Alex model, the beginning of the deep learning revolution. And but AlexNet is only the beginning. There has been incredible progress in the field of computer vision, especially through these annual winners of ImageNet challenge in the following years. And that trend didn't stop. ImageNet challenge and the deep learning revolution took the world by a storm, and we see the progress of computer vision just accelerating. And we're very honored that ImageNet has been one of the most cited work in the history of computer science, and also it spilled over. Computer vision as well as AI was no longer a niche academic discipline since the 2012. It became a driving force of industry, a transformative era of some people call the fourth industrial revolution or the deep learning revolution. And the field of computer vision, if you look at some market research, there is projected tens of billions of dollars of market available now for computer vision. And from Tel Aviv to Silicon Valley, we just continue to see the blossoming and flourishing of computer vision startups. So back in the lab, my students and I don't believe that recognizing or the ability to label object classes is the end of our visual intelligence, right? In fact, here's a simple example. If I have two pictures and they're both labeled with the ImageNet classifier person and llama, you would think the second picture is more or less telling the same story as the first picture. But the truth is, there's a lot more in the pixel space. In fact, this is a very different scene from the left one. And psychologists and cognitive scientists, again, knew about this before computer scientists. This is a friend of mine and one of my favorite papers by Jeremy Wolf, partially because the paper is only 2 pages. He had conjectured that just recognizing object is not enough to understand and categorize a scene. Relationships between objects must be coded. Indeed, there's rich relationship within a scene beyond just the identity of objects. So my students and collaborators and I actually proposed this new work called scene graph representation, where we encode objects, here in pink boxes, their pairwise relationships, here in green boxes, as well as the attributes that defines the objects here in purple boxes. And you can see a simple picture like this has a very rich and dense visual scene representation. And by creating a large data set with this kind of with this kind of annotated data, we're able to do things like predicting object relationships in a scene. In this case, such as person riding a horse or person wearing a hat. In fact, scene graph representation is very compositional. And because of this, we can take advantage of the compositional nature and be able to do something like zero-shot learning, which is we don't have to train every relationship with a ton of images. In this case, our algorithm was able to recognize horse wearing hat, which is a rare event in life, or person sitting on fire hydrant, not so rare. And in general, our algorithm at that time using scene graph representation performed better than state-of-the-art algorithm at that time. Of course, calling out or labeling relationships is not the end of the story. In fact, we humans can actually tell a visual story when we are presented with a scene. So around a couple of years ago, using deep learning algorithm, my students and collaborators and I had done a series of work pushing the boundary of visual recognition beyond objects, beyond relationship predictions, into storytelling and captioning. In this case, we show this picture to a computer, and the computer can automatically generate a story such as a man riding a horse-drawn carriage down the street. And if we push it harder, they can write denser captions or even paragraph captions. Even furthermore, the visual world is not static. Most of the world is moving and dynamic. So we push the scene graph representation into spatial temporal space. And we start to work on recognizing multi-object, multi-actor activities and relationships. This is an example of an algorithm recognizing not only ping pong or table tennis players, but their movements and the relationship between the table, the ball, the referee, and so on. So all this is to show you that the field of computer vision has really blossomed, and there are so many interesting things to work in. Beyond my own lab, our field has made tremendous progress in 3D vision, in pose estimation, in instance segmentation, and in generative arts of vision. And this journey hasn't stopped. We continue to see the explosion of computer vision development. So for this part, we have observed data, compute, and neural network algorithms ushered in the deep learning revolution in AI. But I'm a firm believer that AI's development has been and will always continue to be inspired by brain science and human cognitive science. And here are the collaborators and students and postdocs who have contributed to the work I mentioned earlier. Now let's look beyond what humans can see. I know what humans can see as an inspiration of computer vision, but can we build AI to see what humans don't see? Well, to start with, we don't know everything about the object world. In fact, can you name all the dinosaurs here? Maybe if you have kids, but even with kids, I'm unable to name all the dinosaurs. And there are tens of thousands of bird species and thousands of car, I guess we don't call species, car types. And so this is what we call fine-grained object categorization. And to be honest, most humans, normal humans, cannot recognize that level of bird species or that many cars. And this is where computer algorithms have pushed the boundary of human visual ability. And we have in our lab, as well as other people's lab, created algorithms to do this kind of thousands of bird species recognition. And this is one of my favorite work because we scraped the Craigslist or Kelley Blue Book to learn 2,800 types of cars ever manufactured since the late, I think, 1970s. And then we take these car detectors, we scan Google Street View images across 200 American cities, and we learn about neighborhoods, we learn about sociology. We can correlate the recognition of cars with census data like neighborhood education level or income or even voting patterns. So computer vision, just like human vision, is a lens not only to just see what the world is, but to see and understand who we are and the human society. So that was object categorization, but I want to push you a little bit because our human vision system actually do have limits. And this is a famous visual illusion test that many of you know, the Stroop test. And you know the words, but can you read to yourself the color of the words, not the words itself? So from left to right and top to bottom, I would say red, oh God, red, orange, green, and it's hard, right? And we feel bottlenecked and there is a conflict. And here's a related visual illusion to show you that we have limited human attention resource. So in a change blindness example, I'm showing you two alternating pictures, and there's one change in the alternating pictures. Nod your head when you see the change. Oh, this is an IQ test. Okay, so you didn't nod as fast and as much as that Molly Potter's detecting the person. So it's the jet engine. Okay, let me do it again. Right? A huge part, right? And okay, so this is fun. But the limitation of visual attention is not fun when it costs lives. In fact, medical errors are the third leading cause of death in American healthcare system. And we have many situations in the medical scenario that we need more visual attention. For example, surgical instrument, accounting for surgical instruments. There are so many of them during a surgery. And to this day, it's humans, nurses and doctors who have to tabulate and count them during the process. And it slows down the surgery and sometimes causes errors. So can we imagine computers to help? If they can recognize 2,800 types of cars or birds, can we account for surgical instruments? Here is a pilot study we did in actual surgical rooms at Stanford Hospital where the computer vision algorithm is automatically accounting for all the sponges in the scene. And we can imagine to take this further and help the doctors and nurses. So there's a lot more humans don't see that we can ask computers to see. But sometimes not seeing is more profound. This is really one of my favorite visual illusion. And I'm just giving you the answer right here. I didn't even have time to test you. So if you look at the top image, square A and B, don't you swear they're of different grayscale values? And then you copy this image and put these two gray bars, they're identical gray values. Isn't that crazy? Because of the context, the prior knowledge of shape and lighting, you have a different way of processing this visual information. For those of you who are old enough, who are they? Clinton and Gore, right? Of course it's Clinton and Gore. Really? Is it really Clinton and Gore? Look hard. Now, it's actually Clinton and Clinton. But because of your prior knowledge, the context, the hair, and all this, you see two different people. You come with your own human visual bias. And this is a fun example, but bias is not fun. Bias can be hurtful, bias can harm people, and then can particularly harm people in underrepresented, underserved community. So computer scientist and poet Joy Buolamwini put this beautifully in an example in a poem she wrote called AI, Ain't I a Woman? And this is to really raise the awareness of AI algorithms, in this case facial recognition algorithms, failing to recognize women and people of color's faces. So AI can amplify human bias, especially if the data is biased and has issues. But the good news is there is a growing body of work that is seeking to address this. I'm just showing you a few examples, and there's a lot more happening now, and the awareness level is a lot higher. So we talk about bias, seeing bias, but there's something even more profound of not seeing. And it's very important. And consider the situations when you don't want to be seen. In fact, it is really important to recognize privacy is part of human dignity and it's part of human rights. And when we are creating these powerful computer vision algorithms, how do we address the issue of privacy? I, for one, do not believe technology is the only solution to addressing human and societal issues, but technology must rise to the occasion and participate in being a solution, not causing problems. So there are actually a growing number of technical approaches to privacy computing in computer vision. Here I'm just listing a few, whether it's face blurring, dimensionality reduction, body masking, federated learning, homographic encryption. Some of you might not know all these words, but for those of you who come from computer science and data science, these are just some of the work that my colleagues and I have worked in. And I want to just show you one work. It's actually not even my work. It's mostly my collaborator, Juan Carlos Niebles, and his students. This is a really fun work of doing privacy-aware computer vision computing. They recognize that there is a need for computer vision technology to recognize human gestures in many applications, whether it's retail store or safety or garage or whatever. But how do we do this in a privacy-preserving way? They devised a lens that actually distorts the input. So instead of seeing humans, it blurs. The lens gives you images like this. But it's not enough to just have a blurred picture because you still want to recognize what's going on. So they actually developed a set of algorithm that's coupled with this hardware so that even when the pictures is distorted, the algorithm is still capable of recognizing relevant human activities. So this is a way to balance the need to recognize what's going on, but to protect privacy as much as possible. Of course, all this is just ongoing work, and this is a long journey. But in this part, we talk about building AI to see what humans don't see. But what we really learned is that bias, privacy, these are the issues AI can amplify or exacerbate many profound issues that plagued humanity for ages. So we, as technologists, along with other stakeholders, must commit to study, forecast, and guide AI's impact on people and society in a multidisciplinary approach. And these are some of the lead collaborators, students, and postdocs who have contributed the work I talked about in this section. This brings us to the last topic of the day, is building AI to see what humans want to see. Let's face it, when we talk about AI today, the most important concern, one of the most important concerns society has is the labor threat. You know, when we are building automating machines, we're taking away human jobs, be it truck drivers or radiologists or factory workers. And we see these kind of headlines all the time. I, for one, have worked in an industry for the past 10 years that I see, I see a different angle, and I see an equally important, or maybe even more profoundly important problem, is actually the current labor shortage in many of our industries, such as healthcare. By next year, that's like 2 months from now, America will be missing 1 million nurses. And our current nurses are overworked and underpaid and overexhausted. And these are the issues, are the very human issues that we're facing. So how do we balance the concern for AI's labor threat, which is real, and we need to really think about it, to the many of the current issues of labor shortage or even unsafe work environments. So we really believe, and I really believe, there is a verb we need to replace, and it's the word replace itself. AI should be augmenting human capabilities, not replacing human capabilities. And I want to show you 2 lines of work in this arguing for AI's augmentation. One is back in healthcare. I already give you a little bit of a teaser early on that medical error is a leading cause of death, one of the leading causes of death in American healthcare system. In fact, there are many healthcare scenarios where we don't have enough human eyes to see, to ensure quality, and to ensure safety. So more than 10 years ago, my colleagues in Stanford's medical school and I came together and start to really imagine, can we, in this new wave of machine learning, deep learning revolution and smart sensors, can we imagine that we use these smart sensors and ML algorithms to glean health critical insights that are important for patients and clinicians. And this technology is what we call ambient intelligence for healthcare. A couple of years ago, we put our work, 10 years work, in a Nature review. I'm not going to get into the details of this paper, but I'll give you a couple of nuggets of what we talked about. The first one is hand hygiene. Hand hygiene practice, proper hand hygiene practice is very important to reduce hospital-acquired infection, which causes tens of thousands of lives, 3 times more than car accidents on America's road. And whether we're talking about human auditors or technology like RFID, they're actually more or less ineffective or too time and labor prohibitive. So we piloted this project at Stanford Hospital, where we put a smart sensor on top of the gel dispenser, the sanitization stations. And these sensors capture depth images that look like the blue videos. So it's more or less protecting the privacy of our clinicians. But in the meantime, our backend algorithms is running 24/7, recognizing proper hand hygiene activities. Here, if you see a green box, it means the clinician is properly gelling his or her hand before entering the patient room, and the red box shows that proper hand hygiene movement did not happen. Our algorithm performs on par with ground truth, is a lot better than 1, 3, or even 4 human observers. So we also worked in ICUs. Patient mobility is linked to improved recovery. But how do we know a patient is being moved properly, both in terms of frequency as well as other measures? It's hard. We're still resorting on human auditors, and if you know anything about the work of ICU clinicians, you know they're overworked and not enough hours to even cover how much they need to do. So again, we put these smart sensors in Stanford Hospital as well as a hospital in Utah, and start working with clinicians on, can we prototype a potential AI help here. So here you're seeing that our AI algorithm is recognizing 4 types of activities or mobility movements in the hospital: getting out of bed, getting in bed, getting out of chair, and getting in chair. And we're showing that our algorithm is performing very well against human-labeled ground truth. Last but not the least, there is a lot more potential in using this kind of ambient intelligence technology in senior homes and aging in place to predict and prevent unsafe events, monitor patients with mild symptoms, and manage chronic conditions such as infection, mobility, sleep patterns, and diet. In fact, I pay particular attention to this aging issue because America is aging, the world is aging, and we're having a real labor shortage of caretakers. So can we go a step beyond just passive smart sensors to send alerts to doctors and families when it comes to aging? Here's a little bit of sci-fi. Because of the decrease of availability of caregivers, can we imagine one day AI in the forms of robots can also help our seniors or aging in place? And here is not to replace humans. Human connection, human emotion, family is important. But there's a lot of tasks we can imagine robots to do. And it's also, remember, there is 18.4 billion hours of home assistance from unpaid caregivers that's not accounted in our current GDP. And guess who it impacts the most? Women and people of color. So, as an AI scientist, I'm extremely excited to imagine a robotic future that can help people at home. Well, don't get too excited too soon. Here's where today's robots are. We hear a lot of robots in factory settings. Those are very structured and pre-programmed settings. If we put a robot in an unstructured setting like this, the poor guy can barely put a box on a cart. And this is, I hope I didn't offend any roboticists in the audience. We know that there's a long way to go in robotics. In fact, that most of robotic research today is still more or less limited to short horizon tasks, such as placing something or opening a drawer or door, or inserting a peg in a hole. And moreover, if you look at robotic research and the papers we publish, they're mostly done, our experiments, in artificially simple environments, small scale and anecdotal, experimenter picked tasks and setup, lacks standard benchmark and metrics. And if we want to connect this to the goal of everyday robot, the real world is a lot more complex, dynamic and uncertain, has large variabilities, interactive and social, and has a lot of tasks. So how do we close this gap? Well, if we have learned anything in the past decades of the deep learning revolution, we have learned that data and benchmark has come a long way in other related fields, such as computer vision and natural language processing. In fact, with this kind of inspiration, we ask ourselves, can we get inspired for a new North Star for robotic learning and embodied AI? And this is the last work I want to present in this lecture today, is an ecological robotic learning environment and a large and diverse set of activities that is proposed by the Behavior Project at Stanford, which is a benchmark for everyday household activities in virtual, interactive, and ecological environments. It's been so fun to work on this project in the past 3 years, and we have both cognitive psychologists and roboticists and computer scientists working together. Before we're talking about, oh wow, this is virtual world, what are they talking about? Let's just take a moment and think, at the end of the day, what kind of tasks are we talking about here? You want robot to help everyday household activities. What are the everyday household activities? Well, let's do a little bit of an experiment right here. I'm going to ask you about some household activities that you would like a robot to help you with. Just like nod or say something if you like that. What about cleaning the kitchen floor? Okay, good. Yeah, good. Shoveling snow in Connecticut? Okay, good, good, good. Folding laundry? Okay. You know, I fold a lot of laundry at home. I actually like that time. But anyway, robot can do that. Cooking breakfast? I'm getting a little bit of a pause from you. Okay, this last one is the best. Opening Christmas gifts. Okay. By the way, I don't know if you noticed, every single one of the images are AI generated here, not human artists. So, okay, so that's good. So this is really important. We are very enthusiastic technologists, but before we even start our project, let's focus on humans and people's need. So before we start a behavior project, we actually did a large-scale user study with 1,400 participants from Amazon Mechanical Turk and curated 2,000 plus everyday activities that are proposed by government data, and ask people how much would they benefit if a robot did this for them. Because it's important to know what humans need. And then we got the scores, we ranked them, as you just showed. Cleaning, we all want cleaning. But people don't like robots to open Christmas gift or throw darts. I guess they're worried robot would win, or buy a ring. I hope not. So okay, so if you put the top 1,000 tasks that people prefer robots help, they actually do cluster into mostly cleaning tasks or some simple cooking tasks or some boring shopping tasks and so on. So that's good. So we decided we're going to take the top ranked 1,000 household activities as the baseline, or as the activities we will work towards for our robotic learning project. But that's not enough. In what environment? We don't want to use anecdotal, small-scale, simple laboratory-made environment. So we actually scanned 50 real-world environments from apartments to restaurants to offices to stores, and use these as basis for building our robotic training world. And we also obtained 5,000 3D object models across 1,200 object categories. And these object asset models cover 30 plus different properties, from temperature changes to articulation and deformability and so on. Now with all these ingredients together, we're ready to make an unprecedented large-scale simulation environment for robotic learning. Simulation environments are very critical. In fact, they're fast, they can be used to transfer to real world, they're safe, and they are more reproducible, and we can work towards a more fair data set using simulation. And there has been good work. There has been a lot of efforts in the field of AI in creating simulation environments. And these are some of the state-of-the-art simulation environments by our colleagues in the world. Behavior project, we partnered with NVIDIA's Omniverse team, which is a commercial-grade simulation environment, and we aimed at creating a realistic environment to train robots, both in physics, perception, and interaction. Here I'm showing you examples of realistic physics. You see thermal effects, you see lighting and reflection effects, you see fluid, deformability, transparency. We also did a user study on the realism for perception. We compared behavior's environment or simulation environment against the other simulation environment and asked people to score the perceptual realism, and behavior came out pretty well. We also tried very hard to reproduce the realism in physical interaction. Here you're seeing robots doing things with pretty complex materials, such as water, fluids, or deformable materials. So this is just a very messy, nerdy chart that we put together to show you the quantitative comparisons of behavior compared to other simulation environment, and how behavior is more diverse, more large scale, and complex in several important dimensions. Of course, with the goal of creating a new generation of robotic algorithms for these everyday household activities, we want to start by asking the question, how did today's algorithm do? We picked 3 behavior activities: store decoration, collecting trash, and cleaning table, to benchmark against today's state-of-the-art algorithm. This is a little dense. I promise this is the last dense part of the talk, where we use these 3 tasks, and we change different conditions of the algorithm to see how the state-of-the-art algorithm do. Let me just say that if we do not give artificially privileged information to today's state-of-the-art algorithms, the performance is 0. Well, that's actually encouraging. At least that's what I said to my students, is that you want to be challenging, and this is where we can make progress. But of course, if we relax and give some privileged information, for example, here we give it what we call action primitives, which is, for those of you coming from robotics, you'll know this is a little more just pre-programmed movements, then the performance start to improve. And if you add some artificial memory to this, it'll improve even more. All this is to say, this heavy chart is to say that behavior is perhaps one of the most challenging benchmark in today's robotic learning. And we find it very exciting that we have now this fertile playground to train 1,000 household activities for robotic learning algorithms. And we're not stopping here. We're also taking simulation into real world and creating a sim to real possibility. At Stanford, we created a real-world apartment and also have a real-world robot called Marvin working with its own digital twin in the simulation environment, so that we are simultaneously training the virtual agent as well as the physical agent. Here's actually Marvin. Marvin is very slow, but Marvin is actually successfully going to pick up this bottle, and with the goal of sending this bottle to a trash bin. So let's see if Marvin does that. So please bear with me. Marvin, in this case, successfully will navigate to the trash bin and place the bottle inside. Okay, so, but Marvin is not successful in many times. Sometimes he navigates to the wrong table. Sometimes it just doesn't pick up the bottle. Sometimes it didn't manage to place the cup in the right place. So I'm just showing you this to show you we still have a long way to go to get the the cleaning kitchen floor thing going for us. And this is a teaser video to show you our behavior project and give you a little more sense of the diversity of this environment. Of all these are our simulation environments. And with the video, you get to appreciate a little more of the complexity of behavior, complexity of the environments, the large-scale things from store to apartments to restaurants, the kind of different objects, and of course the website of behavior. So, okay, so we started by that per robot, and our goal is one day we'll create household robot. And that's still a long journey, but I'm very excited by behavior because it is born with the goal of augmenting people, not to replace people. It's large scale and diverse, and it's striving to be realistic and ecological. So with all this work in building AI to see and do what humans want to see and want them to do, we learned the value that AI must seek to augment, not replace, our individual and collective human capabilities and well-being. And there are a lot of collaborators, students, and postdocs who have contributed to this part of the work. So this brings us almost to the closure of this lecture. We've talked about 3 kinds of AI work we have done in our lab. And what's most important is after this 20-year journey in building AI, we have actually learned a lot of human lessons that the development of AI must be guided by the concern for its human impact, that AI should strive to augment and enhance humans, not replace humans, and that AI technologies must continue to be inspired by human intelligence and brain sciences. And with these three fundamental human values, Stanford launched 3 years ago the Human-Centered AI Institute with the support of a broad faculty leadership across our, at that time, 7 schools. Now we have 8 schools, from law to business to medicine to humanities to engineering and natural sciences. And HAI is a very young institute. I'll just highlight a couple of things we have done, mostly during pandemic, I guess. We have launched the Digital Economy Lab to specifically put together economists and computer scientists and technologists to study the impact of society, of labor market, of our economy in this digital age. We have launched a Center for Research on Foundation Models. All the news-generating AI you see today, whether it's GPT-3 or these DALL-E arts, is by these large foundation models. And they have profound implications in our industry as well as AI application, both from an ethical, societal point of view as well as from technology point of view. So we have professors, faculty, researchers coming together to study this. We also pioneered a new way of reviewing AI research grants called Ethics and Society Review, inspired by the Human Subject IRB review, led by political scientists, the humanist, and the computer scientist. We also have education program geared towards undergraduates and graduate students by embedding ethics in our computer science classes. But our education didn't stop within the walls of Stanford. We reached out beyond the walls of Stanford and started to extend AI education to professional audiences like business executives, journalists, lawyers and judges, as well as policymakers, especially in Washington, D.C., but also at the state and local level. And Stanford was very proud to be leading the lobbying, successful lobbying of a bill called National AI Research Resource. And I believe Yale was part of the team. Thank you for this successful effort. So Biden administration launched the National Artificial Intelligence Research Resource Task Force 2 years ago. I'm very honored and humbled to be one of the 12-people task force. And in a few weeks, we'll be presenting to Congress this new idea of how to rejuvenate America's public and higher education sector's capability of innovating and education in AI. So all in all, it has been an exhilarating as well as humbling journey to create AI, to enable machines to see, to realize the audacious ambition that evolution have shown us for 540 million years to create intelligent machines in silicon. But it's incredible that along this technical journey, we've learned more human lessons and understand more human values than machine learned lessons. And this is continued. This is only in the beginning of the journey. And I want to thank, of course, all my students and collaborators and also sponsors to support this research. And thank you for listening.